The Cowboys beat Tom Brady. They had never beaten Tom Brady before last night. How does that tie into Tennessee, Dave? How are you spinning this one? Well, here's the way I'm spinning it, and we'll ask it as today's tough question. We'll post it on the Twitter page. What foe did you most enjoy vanquishing? So if you look back over the history, just the recent history, and Caleb's going to dive a little bit deeper, you have Nick Saban this year. Tennessee was able to beat him while still maybe not at his best, but pretty darn close after I see a number one recruiting class. He didn't have some guys pan out at receiver in particular, but that was a very good football team. So there's no shame in beating a two-loss Alabama team because you're one of the losses as Tennessee was able to beat Alabama the final seconds in Neyland Stadium. So you have Nick Saban. Then you have Steve Spurrier in 2001. You beat Steve Spurrier to go to the SEC championship game. I believe in Steve Spurrier's mind that was going to be his last hurrah. He was going to go win an SEC title and maybe more, maybe play Miami in the Rose Bowl. Tennessee wasn't able to do that. They lost to LSU. But the last time that Steve Spurrier took the field in 2001 in Florida, he was a loser. And he walked off and ended up retiring after that season. So the other one that I would come up with, and this is getting before my time, which is why I love to lean on Caleb because he is a historian right up there with the best of them, but would be Paul Bear Bryant. Also in his final game, Caleb, that was a significant win. So Tennessee, by happenstance or good timing or good old grit and refusing to give up, has beaten three teams, three of the best coaches, I would say the three best coaches in the past 50 years of the sport, two of them out of the sport. So out of those three, which one do you think Tennessee fans enjoyed the most, Caleb Calhoun?
So here's my question to you, and you could, I'm because of those three, should we throw 98 Spurrier in there? Was 01 more euphoric than 98 for Florida, for the win, specifically the win over Florida?
Not at the well, I mean it's coin flip. I mean I was in Gainesville, so I wasn't at that just absolutely idiotic display at Tom Black Track where they gave out roses and still had an SEC championship game to play. So I wasn't there. I was there right after the 98 championship game when they did charge the field. That was euphoric. I'm going to you can say that. Well, let's just kind of combine them, I guess. You beat him 2 years out of four, both for the most important games out of that group. So, man, I'm going to say that's a coin flip, Caleb, and part ignorance for not being at that idiotic Rose Bowl ceremony in Tom Black Track. But no, you bring up a good point. Was 98 the vanquishing of the foe, or was 2000? I guess we could clump them together if that works with you.
And one last question: when we talk vanquishing of the foe, we're talking coaches, not programs, right? Because there's still the 95 Alabama game, which was a vanquish in its own right at the time, but no one considered vanquishing Gene Stallings to be a big deal. And then I brought up 1914 Vanderbilt, the early one. For those of you who don't know, go back and look at history. Tennessee never beat Vanderbilt until 1914. Vanderbilt was the class of the South in college football during that time. Hilarious to say, but they were. And Tennessee could never beat them. They finally won it in 1914, went 9-0, won their first SIAA title that year. Robert Nalen was hired to beat Vanderbilt. That was the task he was given. But if we're just talking coaches between those three, I wasn't around in 1982, but I would say that's tough. I would say the Alabama one this year, and I'm not trying to be prisoner of the moment, that was the longest losing streak Tennessee ever had to a school in a series, 15 games. By the way, 16 to Nick Saban, because let's not forget their losing streak to Nick Saban dates back to the worst loss in Tennessee football history, the 01 SEC championship game. And they finally vanquished that this year. And they stormed the field, which, by the way, it's a lot harder to storm the field nowadays than it was when they beat Florida in 98 because there's so many rules and regulations about storming the field that are put in place.
True.
And
now, Elias said there were roses everywhere on Florida's campus during the pregame. I think that kind of triggered our own idiocy. Now I was sent there. This is the only time we did this. They sent me to cover Florida's football practice, which was a really bad idea because none of them knew me and they thought I was some sort of spy. But I was down there on Monday. I don't remember seeing roses before the game. Do you recall that?
There were some highlights of Florida fans holding roses. There were
Okay.
there were.
Well, I was there
Um,
and I didn't see it, but I don't doubt it at
which,
all.
to be fair, I think you knew how Florida was. Yeah, they shouldn't have overlooked Tennessee, which was stupid. But I would say that had Florida won that game, Florida would not have struggled with LSU the way Tennessee did. That matchup, Florida would have beat the brakes off them. Honestly,
That wasn't a very good LSU team.
no, it wasn't.
And they had two of their key players, Rohan Davey and LeBrandon Tofield, announced out at halftime.
And everybody used to. I get the criticism of Fulmer, but you know this, Dave. One of the dumbest criticisms of Fulmer was that he ran the ball too much. No, that game he actually abandoned the run game way too quickly. I remember watching that, and Casey Clausen threw it like 44 times or some stupid number like that.
I agree, but that's one of those, and I typically don't do this. I'm putting a lot of it on the players. You had the Julian Battle dropped interception. You had the Dante Stallworth fumble. You had a Travis Stevens fumble. As bad as the defensive coaches responded to the draw after draw, and that's exactly how they responded. They just took it. And as bad as that was, if Tennessee just holds on to the ball, makes a timely interception, that's a 14, 17 point victory by Tennessee. I firmly believe that.